We've just been watching some BTCC footage backstage. It really is, it's a wonderful championship, isn't it? And the TV package, we've just been talking to some of the drivers, it's on all day on race day on ITV. And
yeah, and it's quite a challenge from the broadcasting point of view, and it's quite a challenge from the organisational point of view as well. And great credit to Toka for the afternoon's racing they put on, which is virtually seamless, but it does enable us to come on the air about 11:30 in the morning, and we go off at 6 o'clock in the evening, and there's barely a moment of dead air or barely a moment of calm. You're reacting from one race and building up to the next, and it is a terrific challenge, and it reminds me a lot of the old grandstand days where it was all seat of the pants broadcasting and 7 hours would just fly by. But thoroughly enjoying it, and the BTCC looks as strong as ever next year.
it's still got the old magic, hasn't it, of identifiable cars that bang into each other with some strong characters behind the wheel. It's what people want to see.
Yeah, and it's racing. And it's not only racing from the BTCC boys, but it's racing from the support package, which will have a few tweaks for the forthcoming year, and will always provide great entertainment and a very strong insight into the kind of young potential that's coming through in the sport. So for me, it works on every level. It's not high-tech, but it is great sport and it is great racing, and as you say, recognizable cars and some, especially with Mr. Plato, some very recognizable drivers as well.
Absolutely. Alan Gow confirmed yesterday a new 3-year deal with ITV, which gives the championship a really solid platform on which to build even further.
It does, and it's extraordinary when you look back at the television history of the Touring Car Championship. We started to be able to give it a significant television presence back in 1988 with Grandstand, and it's been virtually continuous ever since, either via the BBC or via ITV. So it's 25, 26 years of a very strong television package, but it's never been as strong as the commitment that ITV put behind it, especially in terms of airtime and resources to enable it to become a great live spectacle. We had 7 or 8 years of doing the Touring Car Championship where it was all off tape, and it was all the magic was created in the edit suite as much as the race circuit. Those days are behind us, and it's as high-tech a live outside broadcast as you can get.
I remember the stories of Murray Walker going to Barry Hinchcliffe's operation in London and spending all day in the edit suite talking to the footage and making it sound like he was actually there.
Well, he did, and I spent long hours with Murray, and we would come in on a Monday, and for example, if you just recorded a race around the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, you probably had 16 cameras, each of whom were generating maybe 10 tapes. I mean, we were on tape in those days. So you had 160 tapes piled up in the edit suite. You had 48 hours to knock that into shape before dear old Mr. Walker swanned in, maybe on a Tuesday evening. He had a hotel down the road, and he sat down. He brought in his own scraps of paper from home, which were, we later discovered, were the blank backs of share dealing certificates. So he had a great pile of these, and he would work out the entire commentary for a half-hour race. It would probably take him a day and a half, and then we would all assemble in the edit suite. And Murray would put on this performance. He would stand up as if it was a live commentary. He'd be jabbing at the screen as if it was a live commentary, but working off, effectively, a script. But the whole performance had the feel of a live commentary, and it was probably the most important ingredient in establishing the Touring Car Championship as a television event in the 80s and 90s.
Do you think the move to the one-class formula in '91 was, at the time, was it a worry? Was there a fear that we would have, they'd be sort of more shopping cars rather than the big flame-spitting Sierras and things that we had?
It was a big step, and it was a brave step, but it is one that had to be taken. You look back at the multi-class racing that we had in the 80s and 88, 89, wasn't it, in particular? Desperately confusing.
Champions who didn't win races.
Exactly, yeah. And races that were very hard to explain and decipher. So although it was a step back, I used to love those Sierras and the sound and the banging and the whole macho spectacle of it. But now you go and watch these cars live, and you take a step back in the pit lane. These are sort of not quite fire-breathing monsters, but they are definite racing machines.
They'll be as quick, won't they, as the old Group A cars. You've been very busy with the Sky Legends series. That's been a lot of fun to watch. You've sat down at home with a sort of galaxy of stars from the past, and I think it's a job we'd all kill for, frankly.
I virtually had to kill for it, but it's but it was a nice thing to do because I'd done 25, 30 years of live motorsport in various forms, and coming back and doing Formula One for 3 years with ITV, and this was an opportunity. I was reluctant to go back on the live circuit, but this was an opportunity that Sky presented me with just to sit down. They gave it the title Legends, which obliged you to sit down with just about every surviving world champion to start off with. And we're now up to about 21, 22 hour-long programs, and we've reached the stage where we're beyond the legend status, and we mustn't be embarrassed about that, but we're trying to tell some of the very graphic stories that other people who never reach world championship status, but some of the great graphic stories from some of the great characters of the 80s and the 90s. Just before Christmas, we were out in America with Juan Pablo Montoya. We had a day with Montoya, who, of course, is still very active and very excited about what lies ahead with Penske and his return to IndyCar next year. But he was maybe the most modern driver that we've talked to in the scope of the Legend series. The great thrill is to go back to visit people like Sir Jack Brabham at home in Australia, Mario Andretti, and so on.
The trophies and the models and in Mario's house, just breathtaking.
Well, that is it, and it's a sort of sneaky. It's like a sort of through the keyhole experience, because the great thing is that you've worked with, had the thrill of seeing these drivers in action, but to go and visit them in their homes, it's a very sort of voyeuristic thing just to see who has left the sport with what, who has got most up on their wall, who has got the most in their garage. And Mario, at his home in Nazareth in Pennsylvania, probably sets the standard, because he has kept every single cutting from when he was a junior racer, from when he was a kid, right the way through to IndyCar and Formula One and so on. And it's all up on the wall in his sports bar, every medal he's won, every trophy he's won, and every helmet he's worn. And it's an extraordinary collection. But others are equally impressive. Joe Ramirez, we went to see out in Spain, who was a great team manager for McLaren, and Dan Gurney and so on. He has kept steering wheels. He has kept helmets. He has got Ayrton Senna's used overalls, unwashed overalls, alongside Alain Prost unwashed overalls on the wall. He's got a huge collection of Ayrton Senna racing licenses framed above the... And it's all those sort of things that I find absolutely fascinating.
I can almost hear the Coys guys salivating down there at the mere mention of it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would hesitate to put a value on all this stuff. He's got Dan Gurney's steering wheel from the Belgian Grand Prix.
The Eagle win.
Yeah.
Oh, crikey. Who's still on the hit list? Who haven't you done? Well,
we're now at the stage with Sky. I mean, bless them, they've given us a few resources and a bit of airtime, but they need to be persuaded as to who is out there that deserves to be talked to. They tend to look at the medals won and the titles won, and we must go and see X and we must go and see Y. Obviously, we still need to do, and we've got Nelson Piquet lined up for the next couple of months. We'll be visiting him at home in Brazil. Niki Lauda we came close to doing in December. That's rescheduled for early next year. There are a few other drivers who are uncomfortable with it and won't be part of the series, but that's their choice. We're not grilling them. We're not looking for controversy or screaming headlines. It is a comfortable sort of cozy fireside chat. But there are still some drivers who don't want to get involved, which is fine. I'm particularly keen to get to America, sit down with Dan Gurney in particular. Other people, Riccardo Patrese, Rubens Barrichello, Jacques Villeneuve, all on the list. And then maybe spread it beyond the boundaries of Formula One a little to those who have got experience not only in Formula One but elsewhere. Derek Bell, Jackie Ickx, and so on. We can keep this going for another 20 years, I reckon.
Yeah, we could. And, of course, all the rally boys. I had Walter Röhrl on here this morning. It's a bit of a surprise, which was, it's like a kind of, if it all imploded on me soon after, I would have been happy. Fantastic. All those Group B boys, surely there's a...
Yeah, I'm not sure. We've got a meeting with Sky, and I shouldn't say too much about what goes on behind the scenes at Sky, but I'm not too sure exactly what the restrictions are in terms of putting totally non-Formula One material on the F1 channel at Sky. Certainly from my rally background as well, if we were able to open the whole thing up to Hannu and Walter Rall and Ari Vatanen, I mean, there's a whole new career there. But
and of course, you're a bit of a rally fan too, aren't you? That would be manna from heaven.
Oh yeah. I mean, the stories are so graphic and so beautifully told as well. But
you've obviously followed rallying for a number of years. How do you see the championship at the moment? We've got, I think, renewed enthusiasm. We've got Brits in top cars. We've got Rally GB doing a proper job. It's looking good, isn't it?
Well, yeah. On paper, you're able to sit down, and I always look at things from the broadcast perspective, and you're able to sit down with a broadcaster and say, this is what is happening in the World Rally Championship. A few years ago, you weren't able to have maybe as constructive a conversation with a broadcaster who had little experience of what was going on in world rallying. But now, as you say, you're able to paint a picture of a dynamic championship that has got a lot of potential twists and turns and unexpected ingredients and so on. Exactly the kind of thing that you're able to sell to a broadcaster. If only the broadcaster would pay attention and listen and so on. It is all out there. New world champion and everything else.
Okay, and one other thing that you've been involved in for many years is our awards, the now legendary Autosport Awards. 25 years you've been doing that for us, and it's a real privilege for me to be involved with you directly in that. You've had some amazing characters on the stage at the Grosvenor over the years. Highlights? Which would take hours to answer, I suppose.
It's hard. I mean, the thing takes on a life of its own every now and again, and on occasions has got a wee bit out of hand. With, I mean, we had great years where everyone talks about the banter that is created, but it is it can be quite a solemn evening, and it's an evening that has to say the right things and acknowledge the right achievements. But because the award ceremony itself goes on for about 2 hours, it needs to be light-hearted and a little bit knockabout at times. And there have been people down the years who have helped provide that. Martin Brundle in particular, and Christian Horner. I mean, Jason, who is always floating around, are always good for that kind of element. But I would pick out. There was the wonderful year when Ayrton Senna came on stage and just held court without anyone asking a question hardly, and just talked about his emotions about the sport, his feelings about his sometimes negative image that had been created for him within the sport. And I'd never heard anyone come up on the Autosport stage and speak from the heart with quite the same effective degree as Ayrton did that day. Dario, I thought, this year came quite close to it with one of the great, with his first real statement after his injury. And then, of course, we got the bonus of Sebastian Vettel, who is one of the strongest personalities, and I mean that in every sense, to walk across the stage. He can hold court, he can tell jokes, he can do imitations and everything else. He is an absolute find in that respect.
I think my frustration with the Vettel thing was, wouldn't it be wonderful if the fans could see him like that? Because at a Grand Prix meeting, he's there to do a job and he's towing the corporate line and he's behaving himself. But out of that scenario, he was just magnificent.
Well, doesn't that say everything about Formula One?
Yes,
that if only every driver could walk out there with the shackles off, say what they thought, within certain limitations, of course, but also be able to show the kind of personalities that they are. Not take themselves so seriously, not take the corporate side of their responsibilities as seriously as they obviously do. And Sebastian, when he came on stage at the Autosport Awards, was clearly up for sort of 20 minutes of telling it how it was, and he had a few impersonations lined up and he had a few jokes lined up, but he prefaced it all by saying to the audience, I assume this is going nowhere, but this order, within, I think before he walked off stage, it was all on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was. Some of it, unfortunately, carefully edited. Yeah, it's a great thing, and I think we're riding our luck with Vettel. We've had him 4 years on the trot, each of his title-winning years. I don't know, if he does 5 in a row, we'll see.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, we're not pushing it too hard, but to have him as a world champion on the stage, it's it's an important element for the Autosport Awards to have the reigning world champion on the stage. And Sebastian just seems to have enjoyed his experience more each year, and by all accounts, he pulled out of what was effectively the German Sports Personality of the Year Awards last year in order to join us on stage. He said to me this last time, he said, I said, oh, well, thanks very much for joining us. And he said, I have one weekend in this country, I have to decide what commitment I am going to take. And I said, he said, I did have one other invitation to do something in the UK, but I'd rather do the Autosport Awards. I said, oh, well, what was the other invitation? And he said, oh, it was a program for the BBC in Leeds. And I said, oh, BBC Sports Personality of the Year. I said, you chose right. You chose right.
Classic. Oh, Steve, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Henry.
Enjoy the rest of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ryder.